Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's videocast for subscribers to davidduck.com. I'm talking to you from Norfolk, Virginia, which is, I know from experience this week, is about a 4 to 5 hour train journey south of Washington, D.C. And I'm in Norfolk, which is where there's a big US naval operation, because that's where the company is based that is making this film about my life and work, Renegade. And as soon as I finish this video cast, I'm heading back up to Washington, D.C. to do some more filming for that. And then over to the other side of the United States to look at Silicon Valley, San Francisco. And the plan is to go up and have a look at Bohemian Grove as well. About an hour and a half drive north of San Francisco, and a place I've been a few times. You can't see very much from how far you can, how close you can get, but of course, if you go on the internet, you can see video of Bohemian Grove, where these elite meet for a quote summer camp every summer, and I didn't know exactly when it was, but synchronistically it's fallen while I'm in San Francisco, so we'll see how things pan out. But it's interesting being back in America and seeing the divisions that have taken place, the black and white divisions since Trump came to power, and even more than before. And I've done a video of walking around to particular places like the White House and others, which you can see on the David Icke video channel, or on YouTube, or at davidduck.com. I've also just switched off the television in this hotel room after watching a news conference that Trump has given after the meeting of NATO and all the stuff that's gone on there. And he, as I speak, is heading towards Britain and then on to meet Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland. And, you know, he was talking there at one point about how much money the United States spends on the military, how they've got the best weapons in the world and stuff. Didn't mention all the people living in the streets, which would be very grateful for some of that money. And what we're looking at, increasingly obviously, is this frontman, because he is just a frontman like all of them, frontman for this cabal immediately around him, the Mike Pompeos, the John Boltons, and the Mad Dog Mattises at the Pentagon, and the network that controls them, known as neocons, who were, of course, behind the Bush administration and all the invasions of countries in the Middle East, and the stimulation and manipulation of fake people's revolutions to target regimes in the Middle East that the neocons, i.e. Israel, because that's who controls the neocons, that's who they answer to, wanted removed. But of course you go deeper into the rabbit hole from the neocons and you go way out of the public arena, and the source of this hidden hand, which no one ever sees. And it's clear that what we've got in this frontman Trump is the most extraordinary demagogic narcissist who thinks he's John Wayne, and he struts around both in his body language and his delivery, what he says, like the kid in the playground who's got the biggest dad. My dad's bigger than your dad, therefore I'm in control, I'm in charge. I say this, I say that. His narcissism is extraordinary. And I've always found with extreme narcissists that they are behind all the front are extremely insecure people. And I see that in Trump. It's all front. It's all me. And I'm sure Trump, as these people do, with his mentality, is desperately trying to hide himself from himself, as well as the population. But he doesn't do very well with anyone who can just look on dispassionately and see the personality type that he is. And so this whole story of, because he's there just now bragging about how much more is being spent on the military and how much bigger the military is, and we're entering this arena of intimidation in your face, where with America's record of just taking out regimes and invading countries and having proxy armies do it for them as well. With that background, basically this Trump figure is saying, mess with us and you'll regret it. And therefore, the goal is to just get people to bow down and do what America wants, without even having to use the military, just the threat of it. So one of the things I think that they are trying to do with Putin, hence this meeting, is to try to get him to, if not look the other way, then not to get active in support of Iran, because Iran's their next target. That's why one of the reasons they brought John Bolton in, this psychopathic neocon, who has been talking for years publicly about the need to remove the regime in Iran. In other words, that's what Israel wants, because John Bolton is just a front for Israel. And excuse me, we'll have to see how the next few days unfold. But as with the situation with North Korea, Kim Jong-un, so with Putin, what you see in the public announcements and the public statements will not be the real story of what's actually happening here with this situation, both in regard to Russia, in regard to North Korea, and in regard to China, and together with regard to Iran. And, you talk about all the money spent on the military. And it's to do what? They say it's for defense. It's not. Clearly, it's not for defense. It's for attack. It's what it's used for in terms of the United States and Britain as well. But of course, the military have tremendous skills in many, many areas as a result of their training and the technology to a point. And what a different world it would be if it was used for the benefit of humanity instead of mass murder. And we saw an example of that with this story of the boys, the young footballers, who were trapped in that cave in Thailand in an extraordinarily difficult situation. And American divers, in conjunction with those from other countries, including Britain, put their skills together, military involved, to get the boys out. And they did an amazing job. And why? Well, we know why, but I mean, rhetorical question: why can't we use the skills employed to kill people to actually be used in this positive way? I had a friend who tried for some time to get support for a global military operation that would be on permanent standby with all the skills necessary and all the technology necessary to head for situations like this and earthquakes and or other natural disasters and others, to respond immediately and to use their skills to do what they can in the situations they face. And I think he called it, his working title, I think, was International Rescue, after the Thunderbirds stories and programs of a few decades ago. And it was a great idea, and a great idea for using these skills for the benefit of humanity. But of course, at every turn, once it got to officialdom, there were blocks put in the way, and it never happened. But what happened in Thailand is just a great example of what is possible if only the will was there, which unfortunately it isn't. Now, this is the story from this week. Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger has written a quote, ominous warning about the dangers of artificial intelligence. Now, the story is very interesting to me for many reasons. One, because I focus a lot on what is happening in Silicon Valley and why, and what this whole AI thing is really all about. But also because I'm heading there in a couple of days. And the film company is trying to put me on film with one of these Silicon Valley giants, if you like. But at the moment, they seem very reluctant to talk to me. I can't think why. But one of the great techniques that is used, it's used a lot in relation to Israel, by the way, is to control both sides of an argument. So you get your people to press for what you want, and also you get other people to oppose or warn about what you want. And in doing that, you dominate the major positions in both sides of the argument. And thus you are in a very much stronger position to dictate the ultimate outcome of the argument. And of course, when you talk about AI and you are speaking in terms of the dangers to humanity, indeed the very existence of humanity, then someone who's mentioned immediately is Elon Musk. Oh yeah, Elon Musk said that. He says it's a danger to humanity. Yeah, but Elon Musk is also running a company and other companies, more than one, to actually do exactly what he's warning against. So I don't think I'll take lectures on AI and its dangers from Elon Musk. Thank you very much. But here we have a similar situation with Henry Kissinger, of course, the former Secretary of State and National Security Advisor in the United States, and a manipulator on behalf of this hidden hand for his entire adult life. And he's still doing it. This is what the story says. Former US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger has launched a stark warning to humanity. Advances in artificial intelligence could lead to a world of which humans will no longer be able to understand, and we should start preparing now. What if machines learn to communicate with each other? What if they begin to establish their own objectives? What if they become so intelligent that they're making decisions beyond the capacity of the human mind? Those are some of the questions the 95-year-old, all these people live so bloody long, don't they? The royal family and David Rockefeller and Father George Bush. 95-year-old Kissinger poses in a piece published by The Atlantic, which is a big elite organization and publication, under the apocalyptic title, How the Enlightenment Ends, which of course is what they want to happen. Kissinger's interest, I love this bit. I mean, this is the giveaway, really. Kissinger's interest in artificial intelligence began when he learned about a computer program that had become an expert at Go, a game more complicated than chess. The machine learned to master the game by training itself through practice. It learned from its mistakes, pity Kissinger never has, redefined its algorithms as it went along, and became the literal definition of practice makes perfect. We are, Kissinger warns, in the midst of a sweeping technological revolution whose consequences we have failed to fully reckon with, and whose culmination may be a world relying on machines powered by data and algorithms and ungoverned by ethical or philosophical norms. You mean like Kissinger? The idea, take a breath, Dave. The idea that Henry Kissinger, who's been at the forefront of this web, certainly in the world of the scene, this web of manipulation that's been pushing human society incessantly in a particular direction, with AI at the end of it, connected to the human mind. The idea that Kissinger got an interest and an understanding of the dangers of artificial intelligence when he learned about a computer program that had become an expert at Go is utterly ridiculous. And for anyone who's done any research, absolutely intelligence insulting. Of course they know where this is going. But here's another one who is coming in on the, it's a danger. It's all about dominating the argument on both sides and thus dominating and deciding the outcome. Now, if you're going to, of course, stop this coming out, and so much more coming out that would give people another view on world events and world society and where it's going, then you need to control the narrative. I mean, what have I just been describing? These control both sides of the argument. You're controlling the narrative. And this week, YouTube, owned by Google, Google, of course, now a subsidiary of Alphabet, they are right up there in terms of this AI agenda. YouTube announces sweeping changes to the way it handles breaking news. YouTube is going to do more to combat the spread of misinformation. I love it. During major breaking news events, the online video giant announced that it's taking dramatic steps to improve the quality of videos that appear in search results for breaking and historical news events. In other words, those that parrot the official agenda that they want people to believe. In addition to changing the way search results are organized, the company says it will begin providing information from third parties, such as Wikipedia. I mean, I did a video about that a few weeks ago, Wikipedia. How Wikipedia is run and how information gets onto the pages and what doesn't is absolutely ridiculous and totally open to manipulation and corruption. And now it's being increasingly increasingly touted as the arbiter of what's true and what's not true. And that's not by accident. You see, if you look at Wikipedia, just put almost any figure, any person, any historical figure, any living figure. Often, most of the time, any event, particularly historical events, and what comes up in the Google search engine? Wikipedia's version of that story or that person or that event. And therefore they are dominating the information that you receive in the form of what is bravely called news through Facebook, Google, etc., and the mainstream media. But they're also now dominating backgrounds to people, life stories of people, and backgrounds to events. So whether it's a breaking story or whether it's a retrospective background, they still control it. And thus they're controlling the information that people receive, through which, of course, they get their perceptions and thus their behavior and what they will accept as truth. And they're providing information from third parties, such as Wikipedia and Encyclopedia Britannica. That just gives you the official version as well, for videos about a small number of historical events that have been subject to misinformation campaigns, such as the Apollo moon landings and Oklahoma City bombing. Now, been subject to misinformation campaigns. What does that mean? It means that people are giving another version of the moon landings and another version of the Oklahoma City bombing. An Oklahoma City bombing that I've researched at length myself in its aftermath, and the official story is a joke. But that's the one that Wikipedia will support. Thus, it must be true. These sweeping changes will broadly affect how videos are ranked on YouTube, and they are just the latest extension of the Google News Initiative, Google Lies Initiative, that kicked off in March in an effort to support journalism and combat fake news. Support journalism, that means you work for an official organization that can control what is communicated, what is written or broadcast. And fake news, they are organizations that you don't control in terms of what they write and broadcast. YouTube has a responsibility to make authoritative sources readily available, provide context to help people make their own decisions, and support journalism with technology that allows news to thrive, said YouTube's Chief Product Officer Neil Mohan in a statement of puerility, if that's a word. Oh, dear me, what they want us to believe. It's just extraordinary. The most obvious change being to YouTube is the addition of both a top news and breaking news scrolling shelf that will begin appearing above all search results. The company has been testing these features for the past few months and will now roll out to all users. I cannot frickin' wait. The news shelves will give preference to videos from authoritative news sources, the official version. So how does YouTube determine if a source is authoritative? By looking at things like the number of citations across the internet and historical credibility of a publication, and not just the popularity of a video. Well, the number of citations across the internet, what the bloody hell does that mean? And the historical credibility of the publication, what does that mean? It always gives the official version. YouTube says Google PageRank, the algorithm that powers the Google search engine, Google Page Sensor in other words, will play a major role in determining whether a source is considered authoritative. No, that which programs the algorithm will decide that. More surprisingly, YouTube will also begin including text-based written reports at the top of the YouTube search bar during breaking news events. The articles featured in the developing news bar will be filtered by filtered from Google News, and it can include any agency that's a Google News partner.